specific demographics of the people who possess the capital to buy these newspapers once the consolidated outlets are broken up means that they are likely going to consist of the same demographics as currently own them. That is to say, if opening government's contention is that the problem with the current ownership of media outlets is the demographic of the owners, they have no delta insofar as they haven't proven why those who are now going to be in possession of them are of a substantially different class due to the fact that A, these are going to be the ones who have the incentive to own these newspapers, and secondarily, they are going to be the ones who have the capital to actually acquire it. Because note here, this is the second reason why this debate is almost entirely marginal. Because even if these people are going to consist of a different demographic, the reason why these narratives exist within newspapers in the first place is because you have to meet your market's demand and you have to determine what is going to sell. That is to say, it is specific entrenched societal narratives of those who engage with traditional media that results in the harms that opening government talk about. Here's the second reason then why this debate is almost entirely marginal. Most people don't engage with traditional media anymore, and this is something that opening government almost entirely missed. All of their benefits regarding weak parties getting clout and stuff results from people consuming social media, which they now do so due to the speed of it, the ease of it, the low entry barrier, and the fact that people from the new generation no longer feel like media outlets represent them. What then is the only delta in this debate? The only delta in this debate is the capacity for media outlets to consolidate local news outlets and absorb them from the costs that they would face at the point that they exist generally on a seasonal basis, and at the point that they are only able to prevent themselves from going bankrupt when they are able to be part of the portfolio of a media outlet. This is the only metric on which you should judge this debate. Two things then. On the protection of local news, and even if you decide to judge this on the metric of what these large corporations do, I'm going to prove why this monopoly the opening government assert doesn't result in bad things. Why then on local news? Note that local news is generally the mechanism by which we are able to accrue all of opening government's impact about empowering those who are shut out of traditional media outlets. Why are local and small news outlets dying? Two reasons of this. One, often these specific things that draw traffic to them exist on a seasonal basis. That is to say, often it looks like things like election coverage, and you go through sparse other points of the year whereby you are not getting engaged with, because by the very nature of you being local, you don't have the same interest consistently. Secondarily, you are always at competition with larger companies, and therefore, when people are just trying to consume their general news, they are generally more likely to opt for media outlets. But the important thing to note here is twofold. You have the point that you are unable to ever insulate yourselves, threefold, sorry. If you are ever unable to ever insulate yourselves from a loss because you have lower profit margins and you have substantially less capital reserves, this means you constantly exist on a knife edge and on the ebbs of flows on how viewership takes you. What is the comparative? The comparative is at the point that you are part of the portfolio of a large media outlet. They are able to aggregate their profits and losses across the entirety of the consolidated company, and they are able to account for the seasonal differences in traffic between these TV stations. Why do they do this? Two reasons. One, it is strategically good to diversify your business portfolio at the point where you are able to hedge your bets more on when more and more traffic may come. Secondarily, because you are able to own multiple of them and the specific seasonal traffic will generally balance out across them, this means you are able to accrue profit from one while the others aren't profiting and result in an aggregate increase over the year while being able to insulate yourself from the losses that you would be unable to do if you were relying on one. Note then that people do consume local news, but they only consume it in specific important times of the year that cannot be met by social media, because social media does not produce virality of local news to the same extent, and subsequently we would prefer these small news companies. So at the point that it's important to be able to consume it at the specific time that is important, we stand over the outcome that allows these to continue existing that uniquely occurs at the point that they are brought under these umbrellas. Why is this good? A couple of reasons. One, I think it is specifically important for people to be able to relate to what is in their close proximity, at the point that this is unique insofar as it is not done by large news outlets or social media, and it allows people to feel safe and part of the community that they are in and relate themselves to what they find important. We think insofar as they prefer that, but they're not going to be able to constantly access it because of the nature of news, we think we should protect it for the time that it is important. When it is important, two things. One, when you are deciding how to participate in local elections, we think this is when it gets the most traffic and this is a unique outcome of it. Secondarily, when your large government is making a decision and your local government feels like it has to act as a counter voice to it, if you are only able to consume large media, this is necessarily shut out. But if you want to judge this on the monopolies themselves being good, why are they also an intrinsic benefit? 4 reasons. One, capital, same analysis as your ability to insulate yourselves from loss. We think that the point you have more resources, advertising, quality goes up. Secondarily, capacity to diversify. I think this looks like specifically making newspapers targeted at young people, targeting at minorities at the point you can afford to engage in this diversification. Thirdly, accumulation and concentration of talent. At the point that you are the most attractive hirer, this is when you are likely to get better news by attracting better human capital. Fourthly, exchanges between media outlets. At the point that you are under one large umbrella, you are able to streamline the exchange of information between them. More people access news. The only delta is the essential news that government lose. Never been prouder to oppose.